Imagine the scene. It is a hot, muggy Monday night, June 6th, 1966.
Oh, man. The 60s are just in full swing. The world is changing so fast outside, but where we are tonight, it is just hot.
Stiflingly hot. We aren't at some cool protest or a music festival. We are in Elmira, New York, and the atmosphere is, well, it's thick. Literally.
Sticky.
Yeah, sticky. It's a humid night, the kind where the air feels heavy like a wet wool blanket just draped over the whole neighborhood.
The kind of weather where you just, you can't get comfortable no matter how you sit on the couch.
Exactly. And the windows are thrown wide open to catch a breeze, but instead of a cool wind, they're just catching noise.
Right, because there's no breeze.
Nothing. Traffic is drifting in from the street. The neighbors downstairs are being really loud. It is noisy. It's chaotic. It's incredibly mundane. And yet, amidst all that sweating and the street noise, something extraordinary is about to happen in this second-floor living room.
It's that contrast that always gets me with these specific sessions. You have this really profound, dimension-shattering, metaphysical discussion happening. And at the exact same time, you have the messy, loud reality of everyday life just intruding on it.
That is exactly the vibe we are stepping into tonight. We are doing a deep dive into session 265 of the early sessions, book 6 of the Seth Material.
Which is such a fascinating period in the whole Jane Roberts and Seth timeline.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're really getting into the actual mechanics of consciousness here. It is way less abstract philosophy and a lot more like a user manual for the human mind.
It really is. And tonight, we aren't just reading a lecture. We are effectively sitting in that muggy room with them. We're going to be chilling, relaxed, having a late-night conversation about the unknown, just like they were. But before we peel back the veil of reality, we do have a little housekeeping to get out of the way.
Right, the necessary guardrails.
First, a mandatory disclaimer. This deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We are here to explore, to learn, and to wonder with you.
And we absolutely must give credit where it is due. The source material we are unpacking tonight comes directly from the Seth Material, which is published by the New Awareness Network.
So if you find yourself hooked by what we discussed tonight, and honestly, considering we're going to be talking about out-of-body travel and unbuilt realities, I really don't see how you wouldn't be. We strongly encourage you to go straight to the source.
Definitely.
Visit setcenter.com/early-sessions. Buy the books. Study the Seth Material books. We are just scratching the surface here. In fact, we are strictly limiting ourselves to quoting up to 5% of each session just to illustrate our points of analysis.
So we're just the trailer, the books, or the actual movie.
Haha, that's a perfect way to put it. So, what is our mission tonight? We have a stack of notes here from session 265, and we are going to explore 3 main pillars. First, Seth's very specific and honestly somewhat chilling instructions on projection.
Right, out-of-body experiences,
Yeah.
astral travel.
Whatever you prefer to call it. Second, we're going to talk about the nature of hallucinations versus reality. And trust me, it is not what you think. It gets into some very heavy philosophical territory about what real actually means.
Oh yeah, it really challenges your assumptions.
And finally, we're going to look at the results of a blind envelope experiment that happened right there in that hot living room.
The evidence to back up the theory. The receipts, so to
I
speak.
think so. Let's meet the players. Who exactly is sitting in this hot, muggy room on June 6th?
Well, obviously you have Jane Roberts. She's the medium. She's the one who actually enters the trance state. And she refers to herself as Rupert when Seth is speaking through her.
And her husband, Robert Butts, Seth calls him Joseph.
Right. And he's the scribe. He's the anchor for the whole process. He's the one frantically writing down everything Seth says in shorthand while trying to ignore the noise from the street.
And tonight, they actually have guests, witnesses. We have Dawn and Marilyn Wilbur, and we also have Ann Diebler.
So it is a full house. And I just love the little details in the notes here, because it's not just humans in the room. The notes specifically mention that the cats, or as the text charmingly refers to them, the pussies are playing really noisily right at Jane's feet.
Yes. That is the juxtaposition you mentioned earlier. You were talking about leaving the physical body and traversing entirely other dimensions. And simultaneously, you have kittens literally attacking your ankles while neighbors yell downstairs.
It really grounds it. It reminds you that this isn't happening on some pristine mountaintop in Tibet. It is happening in a normal living room in upstate New York.
It makes it so accessible. Okay, let's unpack this. Section 1, navigating the unknown. Seth starts the session, and he's not wasting any time with pleasantries tonight. He has a warning.
He really does. He is concerned. He's actually quite worried about Rob and Jane.
Why, though? I mean, they've been doing this for a while by session 265. Why the sudden worry?
Because they're developing these abilities very quickly, specifically projection, leaving the body. Seth knows they are going to start doing this spontaneously soon, and he wants to make absolutely sure they don't get hurt. Or, well, rather, that they don't get lost in their own heads.
He calls it subconscious fabrications.
Right. And this is a super crucial concept if you want to understand the Seth view of consciousness. When you leave the physical body, you are entering a dimension where the rules of physics, as we know them, simply do not apply.
So gravity, time, solidity just out the window.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gone. In this other dimension, your thoughts instantly create reality.
Break that down for us. If I'm in the physical world and I think of an apple doesn't just instantly appear in my hand.
No, because in the physical world, there's a built-in time lag. There is physical matter to manipulate. You have to go to the store and buy one, or plant a tree and wait years. But in the projection environment, that time lag is completely gone. Thought is the actual construction material.
So if I think of a brick wall just appears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instantly. And if you are afraid...
A monster appears.
Precisely. Seth uses the analogy of a nightmare here, which makes so much sense. We have all had them. You're running down a dark hallway, something terrifying is chasing you, your heart is pounding. It feels 100% real.
Oh, absolutely. I've woken up sweating from those before.
But the moment you realize inside the dream, wait a minute, this is just a dream, what happens?
The monster usually vanishes, or it shrinks, or it becomes funny. It loses all its power over you.
Because you recognized it as a creation of your own mind. Seth says conscious projection works the exact same way. When you go out of body, you might encounter some really strange things. Some of those things are valid images, like real entities, real places, constructions created by other consciousnesses. But some of them are literally just your own internal fears scaring right back at you.
The subconscious fabrications.
That's the term. And the danger isn't that the monster is actually going to eat your physical body. The danger is getting them mixed up. The danger is treating a hallucination like a reality, or treating a real, valid entity like it's just a hallucination.
There is a quote here from the session that genuinely gave me chills. Seth says, "Your ordinary standards of reality mean absolutely nothing when you leave the physical system."
That is the key to the whole warning. You are entering a world without the usual guardrails. In our world, if you see a city bus, it's a bus. Everyone on the street agrees it's a bus. In the projection state, what you see is this fluid mix of objective reality and subjective projection.
So let's play this out. Say I'm projecting, I'm floating around, having a great time, and suddenly I see, I don't know, a giant spider, or a demon, or just some really creepy guy standing in the corner of the room.
Right, a classic fear manifestation.
What do I actually do? Seth gives very specific advice here.
He says you must will it to disappear.
Just tell it to go away.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
But it is an active force of will. It's not just passively hoping it leaves you alone. It is asserting your own consciousness. He says if it is a subconscious fabrication, if it is just your own fear projected outward, it will vanish. Because it has no independent reality of its own. It is being sustained entirely by your thought. If you stop thinking it or if you actively challenge it, the energy just dissipates. It goes poof.
But what if it doesn't go poof? What if it stays right there?
Then, my friend, you have a situation, or at least a genuine interaction. If you will it to disappear and it remains, that means it is a valid image. It is a reality completely independent of you.
It's real.
In that dimension, yes, it's real. And Seth says you must deal with it respectfully. You cannot just wish it away any more than you can wish away a person standing right in front of you on the subway.
That is actually kind of terrifying. It is like a literal litmus test for ghosts. Are you a real entity, or did I just eat too much spicy cheese before bed?
Basically. It's a psychological sorting mechanism. And Seth actually cracks a pretty good joke about this in the session. He looks around the room at the guests, Dawn and Marilyn and Anne, and he says through Jane, remember that he knows they're not subconscious fabrications.
Right.
And he says, I would be pleased indeed if they granted me the same privilege.
That is funny. The disembodied spirit just hoping the physical humans believe he is actually real.
It really touches on that mutual respect he's talking about. Just as they are observing him, he's actively observing them. But then he pivots to something much more serious right after that. He talks about hallucinations versus reality. And this is where he drops the car analogy.
Oh man, this part was heavy. This is where I say, here is where it gets really interesting. Because this totally challenges that whole, "oh, it's all in your head" dismissal that people use.
It does. Seth challenges the very idea of what we call a hallucination. We tend
Mhm.
to dismiss hallucinations as not real. We say, oh, it's just a hallucination, implying it is totally
Right.
harmless.
Like it can't hurt you because it's not made of atoms.
But Seth says, imagine a car. You were standing in the street. A car is barreling towards you. Now, philosophically speaking, you could argue that the car is just a sensory hallucination. It is just light hitting your retinas, sound waves hitting your eardrums.
Right. Is matter truly solid? All that deep quantum physics stuff. Is it a particle or a wave?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Seth's point is entirely pragmatic.
Yeah.
Whether that car is a hallucination or solid physical matter, if it hits you, what happens?
You die.
Exactly. It kills you. The effect is real, regardless of the underlying philosophical nature of the object.
And the application to astral projection is the chilling part. Just because you are in a non-physical body, moving around in a non-physical world, looking at non-physical things, that does not mean you are safe.
He says, whether or not these images are hallucinations, they can be dangerous, and you must respect the reality in which they exist.
It's a huge warning against arrogance. Just because you know you're projecting out of body doesn't mean you're some invincible superhero. If you encounter a thought form that is powerful or an entity that is negative, it can profoundly affect you. It can have an impact on your personality that is, as he says, as vivid or more vivid than the effect of any waking experience.
So yeah, no running around poking the astral bears.
Definitely not. It essentially means that real is defined by its impact on your consciousness, not by whether it's made of physical matter. If something scares you, changes you, or hurts you psychologically out there, it was real.
Precisely. The experience is the reality.
Okay, so we have established the ground rules. Watch out for your own fear monsters, respect the local entities, and whatever you do, don't get hit by the astral car. Now let's get into the how-to portion of the evening.
The actual mechanics.
Right. Seth references a specific book here, Astral Projection by Oliver Fox.
Yes, Oliver Fox was a real pioneer in this field back in the early 20th century. He wrote extensively about his own experiences with lucid dreaming and self-induced projection.
And Seth actually validates him, right? He says Fox's methods are legitimate.
He does, but with a very significant caveat. Fox wrote a lot about experiencing really unpleasant sensations during the exit process. The loud buzzing, the physical pain, the immense difficulty of just getting out of the body. He described it as a massive struggle.
Like wrestling your way out of a tight wetsuit.
Haha, something like that, yeah. But Seth points out that those unpleasant sensations weren't actually necessary mechanics of projection. They were the direct result of Fox's own psychological makeup.
Expectations again.
Exactly. Fox fully expected it to be hard. He deeply believed there was a physical barrier to overcome. So his consciousness created a barrier. Seth is telling Jane and Rob, if you realize this fact, you can avoid the pain entirely.
I really love that. Don't struggle just because the guy in the textbook struggled. It's like saying, just because someone else had a turbulent flight doesn't mean your plane is destined to crash.
Right. Do not inherit someone else's self-imposed limitations.
Mm.
So Seth gives his own method.
Mhm.
We can call this the Seth method for projection. And it is surprisingly step-by-step.
It is very clinical. Let's break it down for you listeners out there who might want to try this. Safely, of course.
Of course, safely.
So step 1, induce a medium trance.
He suggests doing this when you are already physically drowsy, but pleasantly so. You don't want to be exhausted to the point where you're just going to black out and snore. You want that twilight state, that hypnagogic state, right between waking and sleep.
Okay, so I'm drowsy, I'm relaxed. Step 2, locate the inner self.
Now, this is the internal work. You need to feel the you that isn't your physical body. He literally calls it distinguishing yourself from the meaty fibers.
The meaty fibers. Man, nice visual set. That sounds a bit visceral.
It really is, but it's remarkably accurate. We identify so heavily with our hands, our chest, our face. You have to find that pure spark of consciousness that is sitting inside the meat, the pilot inside the mech suit.
Got it. I found the pilot spark. Step 3, the motion.
Now you actively imagine rising upward. And here, Seth describes a very specific physical feeling sensation, a shaking loose.
Like a dog shaking off water.
Maybe more internal than that. He says it might feel like a side-to-side motion or a sudden rushing upward, but you will feel a distinct, undeniable moment where your core identity withdraws from the physical organism. It's a true separation.
And then, step 4, the exit.
Will yourself out, quick motion, be decisive, don't hesitate.
Now here is where he gives them a choice. Method A and Method B.
Right. And he very strongly prefers Method A.
Method A is forget the physical body immediately.
Instantly lose contact consciously with the physical body. That's his instruction.
Why does he prefer that one so much?
Well, because of what happens in Method B. Method B involves turning around after you exit and looking back at your own physical body.
Which sounds totally cool. I mean, who wouldn't want to see themselves sleeping from the ceiling? It's like the ultimate selfie without needing a camera.
In theory, sure. But in practice, especially for beginners, it is a massive trap. Think about it. If you pop out and suddenly see your own body lying there on the bed, looking essentially like a corpse, looking totally vulnerable, what is your immediate knee-jerk reaction going to be?
Sheer panic. Am I actually dead? Did I leave the stove on? Who is watching the body while I'm up here?
Exactly. Pure panic. And that sudden spike of fear snaps you right back into the physical body instantly. End of projection. So Seth advises, just go. Don't look back. Trust that your physical body knows exactly how to breathe and pump blood without you consciously supervising it.
Yeah, he says the maintenance is being controlled by the consciousness of the individual cells.
Which is an entire deep dive on its own, honestly. Cellular consciousness. But for this specific purpose, yes. Trust the autopilot. Your body has survived every single night you've been asleep so far in your life, so it can handle 20 minutes while you go exploring the astral plane.
But why do this at all? I mean, aside from the obvious cool factor of flying around, Seth actually mentions some highly practical benefits.
He mentions two big ones. One is a safety valve.
This one completely blew my mind. It totally reframes how we view trauma.
It is so fascinating. He says there are many cases where people instantaneously project to escape imminent physical danger.
Like in a severe car accident.
Exactly. Say a truck is about to hit you. If you stay fully conscious in your body, you might just freeze, panic locks your muscles up, you're a deer in the headlights. But if you instantaneously project, if your consciousness just pops out of the physical shell in a millisecond, the body is left to operate on pure instinct.
The meaty fibers take over.
And the meaty fibers are actually incredibly good at survival. They have been evolving for millions of years just to stay alive. Without your conscious fear freezing them in place, the body might react much faster, duck under the dashboard, jump out of the way, and ultimately save itself.
So you pop out, your body does some ninja move to save itself, and then you just pop back in.
Essentially, yes. He says the body escapes precisely because the consciousness is not there to cause those fatal panic reactions.
That is wild. It suggests that our conscious, overthinking mind is sometimes a massive hindrance to our own physical survival.
In moments of pure crisis, thinking is just too slow.
And the second big benefit of practicing projection.
Practice for death.
Wow, cheerful.
But highly practical. Seth used death not as some final end, but simply as a transition to a non-physical environment. If you practice projection now, you are getting familiar with that exact environment before you permanently move there.
So when you actually do die, you aren't freaking out because you recognize the landscape.
You recognize the terrain. You know the rules. You already know that thoughts instantly create reality there. It's basically like doing a fire drill, but for the afterlife.
Oh, I've been here before. I know how to handle these thought monsters. I know how to move without legs.
Exactly. It completely reduces the existential fear of death because you've practically proven to yourself that you exist perfectly well without the physical body.
Okay, moving on to section 3. This, for me, was the absolute aha moment of the entire session, the concept of unbuilt museums.
This is pure, unadulterated metaphysics. This is where Seth completely challenges our entire concept of what history even is.
So we usually think of history as a rigid list of things that physically happen. This war took place, that king ruled, this specific building was constructed in 1900.
Right. Physical facts, tangible, measurable evidence.
But Seth says you can actually visit realities that never existed in physical terms.
He uses this incredible example of a museum that was planned in the 16th century. Architects drew up the blueprints. People thought about it intensely. They discussed it. They poured massive amounts of mental energy into planning it, but they never laid a single physical brick. Physically, it was never built.
In our normal history books, it simply doesn't exist. It's just a footnote. Proposed, but rejected due to lack of funds.
But Seth says the sheer intensity of that collective mental energy created a valid reality, just not in our physical system.
So somewhere, in some overlapping dimension, that exact museum stands.
Yes, fully constructed. And in a projection state, you can visit it. You can walk its halls. You can see the art that would have been displayed there.
That is just staggering. It literally means thoughts are construction materials.
Thoughts are things is the famous phrase. But Seth takes it entirely literally. If you imagine a house vividly enough, you are actually building it. You just aren't building it here in the physical frequency.
It totally changes how you view human creativity, doesn't it? An architect who spends years designing a building that ultimately gets rejected by the city. They didn't waste their time. They successfully built it somewhere else.
And it strongly implies that our physical reality is just one thin layer. We are living in the built world, but right next to us, literally overlapping us, is the unbuilt world, the world of almosts, the world of what-ifs.
It's the multiverse theory, but powered entirely by individual consciousness instead of quantum probability.
Precisely. And Seth explicitly says these unbuilt realities are as real as the house in which you live.
I am going to be thinking about that for a very long time. Every time I have a really vivid daydream about, say, a cabin in the woods, am I zoning real estate in another dimension?
Uh-huh. You very well might be. So be careful what you spend your time daydreaming about.
Good advice. Okay, let's ground this conversation again. We have talked a lot about the theory. Astral projection, thought monsters, unbuilt museums, super high concept stuff. But Seth isn't just a philosopher spinning theories. He actually claims to be able to see things. He claims to have direct access to information that isn't physically available in the room.
And this brings us right to section 4, the envelope experiment.
I absolutely love these experiments in the transcripts. It's like a parlor game, but with incredible metaphysical stakes.
It was their main way of objectively testing the channel, validating that this bizarre information was genuinely coming from outside Jane's own subconscious mind. They needed proof. Honestly, Jane needed proof more than anyone. She was always the biggest skeptic in the room, constantly worrying she was just making it all up.
So set the scene for the experiment for us.
Rob, Jane's husband, is handed a sealed envelope. He has absolutely no idea what is inside it. Jane, obviously, doesn't know what is inside it either.
And the envelope was prepared in advance by Don Wilbur, the guest.
Right. Don sealed it up tight. He actually went a step further and wrapped the target object in opaque white paper first, loosely, inside the envelope, specifically to hide the hard edges. So you couldn't even try to guess what it was just by feeling the outside of the envelope.
And Jane, who is channeling Seth at this moment, puts the sealed envelope up to her forehead, which is a very classic medium move, psychometry, and she just starts giving impressions.
Now, let's reveal what was actually inside the envelope first so you listeners can play along and judge the accuracy.
Okay. The target object was a faded Polaroid photograph. It was taken by Don Wilbur, and the subject of the photo was a ceramic garden cat.
A physical statue of cat.
Made by his wife, Marilyn, and it had a very shiny glass glaze on it.
Okay, so a photo of a shiny ceramic cat. Keep that firmly in mind.
Now let's look at exactly what Seth said. Let's go through the hits.
The very first thing Seth says is 4 plus 1 or 2.
Okay, what does that mean in relation to the photo?
Well, looking at the back of the physical photograph, the date it was taken was written right there. April 4th, 1966.
April is the 4th month.
And the day was the 4th. So 4.
And what about the plus 1 or 2 part?
There's a manufacturer's serial number on the photo paper itself that contained a prominent 2. Also, the year 1966 contains a 1. It's a bit abstract with the numbers, but the 4 is a massive direct hit on the exact date written on the back.
Okay, what else did he get?
Seth says connection with a meeting.
And was there a connection?
Yes, a very specific one. Don took this specific Polaroid explicitly for a meeting. It was supposed to be shown in a session on April 4th, a meeting of the 4 of them, but that meeting ended up being delayed. So the photo itself represents a planned meeting that was postponed.
Oh, wow. That is interesting. It's not just describing the visual elements of the photo. It's picking up on the human intent behind the object. Okay, let's get to the actual visuals. Seth says green and yellow.
The photo shows the ceramic cat sitting directly on grass, and the grass in the Polaroid is yellow-brown shading into a vibrant green.
Hit. Then he says stairs or steps. Something ascending.
Now, strictly speaking, there are no actual stairs in the photograph, but the cat is sitting on a brick walk, and because of the specific camera angle Don used, the bricks rise sharply in perspective. They visually look exactly like steps going up.
Okay, so he's describing the two-dimensional visual geometry of the photo, not the 3D reality of the garden.
Exactly. He's seeing the shape as it appears on the paper, interpreting the perspective.
Then he says, high round objects.
The ceramic cat itself is made almost entirely of spheres. It's a very stylized piece of art. High, rounded, bulbous shapes.
Hit. Now here is where it gets uncomfortably specific. Seth actually sees letters connected to it. He says MNG.
This is the kind of tiny detail that really makes you pause and reevaluate reality.
Mm-hmm.
M and G.
And the reveal for
The
those.
creator of the ceramic cat is Marilyn.
M and the G.
The cat has a very special, specific glaze on it, a glass glaze.
M for Maryland, G for glass glaze. That is, I mean, that is ridiculously specific for a blind guess.
And he even emphasizes during the session that they are not the initials of a person's name together, like a monogram, but rather separate concepts, completely connected to the object's creation. Marilyn made it. Glass covers it.
Then he struggles a bit with F and O.
Yeah, he suggests F is a person and O is a shape.
And how does that line up?
Well, Marilyn actually calls the cat Lucifer, which contains a strong F sound, or she calls it feline.
I don't know. That feels like a bit of a stretch to me.
Maybe a little, but the O, he specifically says O is simply a shape, a circle shape. And the ceramic cat is literally made entirely of circular, spherical forms.
Okay, I will give him the O for the circular shapes. The F is debatable, but the M and G are undeniable hits.
But honestly, here is the most fascinating part of the whole experiment. The humor in the actual data he received, the specific confusions.
You mean the date mix-up?
Right. Seth sensed the concept of the number 4 extremely strongly, but he initially guessed July instead of April.
Why would he guess July if the date was April 4th?
Think about July 4th, the 4th of July. In an American mind, the concept of the 4th is overwhelmingly associated with July. Seth is filtering this non-physical information through Jane's physical brain. He likely hit the strong concept of the 4th, and Jane's subconscious brain just autofilled July because of the cultural association.
That is so profoundly human. It shows the actual messy mechanism of channeling. It is not a flawless cosmic fax machine. It's more like a high-stakes game of interdimensional charades.
Exactly. He sees the abstract concept 4, and the medium's brain has to interpret it into words. Sometimes it interprets 4 as April, being the 4th month, and sometimes as July 4th. The fact that the error follows a clear psychological logic of association is actually way more convincing to me than if it was just a random wrong month like November.
It heavily implies a distinct mind trying to communicate through a thick cultural filter.
And he also totally nailed the detail about the spindly lines. He mentioned seeing spindly lines or strings. The brick walk in the photo wasn't cemented together. It had deep cracks between the bricks. Spindly dark lines visually connecting the rounded shapes.
So he is literally seeing the exact composition of the image, the lines, the colors, the shapes, inside a completely sealed envelope, wrapped in opaque paper.
A bunch of cats are biting the medium's ankles.
Right? We cannot forget the pussies causing chaos.
It's incredibly impressive. Even for a hardened skeptic, you have to admit that pulling M and G and the description of ascending bricks out of thin air is statistically highly unlikely to be a random guess.
And it connects perfectly back to the main theme of the night. Consciousness is not bound by physical rules.
Right. If Seth can see inside a sealed envelope, then the barriers of physical matter are nearly as solid as we treat them.
Which directly supports the idea that you can leave your physical body and just walk through walls.
It is all connected. If physical matter is just frozen thought, then consciousness, which is active flowing thought, can simply move right through it.
Before we wrap this up, we should briefly mention Section 5, the in-stream material.
Yeah, just a very quick nod to it. Seth actually takes a break from teaching them about astral projection and playing guessing games with the envelope to give completely unsolicited impressions for a doctor in-stream.
Who wasn't even in the room.
No, this is pure remote viewing across distance. He describes a child's toy, 4 vertical poles, and a male child about 2 years old in another location entirely.
It just highlights the insane multitasking happening here. Seth is teaching an advanced masterclass on astral projection, playing a psychic parlor game with an envelope, and casually checking in on a toddler in another city, all at the same time.
All in a muggy night's work.
So what does this all mean for us? Let's bring it all together for the outro.
We essentially have 2 halves of a deep dive here tonight. We have the theory, and we have the proof.
The theory is all the projection stuff. The radical idea that we are not our bodies, that reality is entirely fluid, that our internal fears can instantly manifest as external monsters, and our collective dreams can build literal museums in other dimensions.
And the proof is the envelope experiment. It actively demonstrates that consciousness can access highly specific data that the physical eyes absolutely cannot see.
Because if the envelope experiment is real, if Jane really saw that shiny ceramic cat inside the opaque paper, then the true mechanism for sight isn't the physical eyeballs, it is the mind itself.
And if the mind can see without needing eyes, maybe it can easily travel without needing legs.
That is the core message of Session 265. We are so much more than just meaty fibers.
We are the spark inside the meat. And that spark has places to go and things to build.
Listen, we really hope this conversation has opened a few doors for you tonight, or at least unlocked a few windows in your mind on this muggy night.
If you want to dive deeper into this, and you really should go read the source books, the early sessions, published by New Awareness Network, go to sethcenter.com. There are literally thousands of pages of this mind-bending stuff. We quoted maybe 5% of just one single session tonight.
There is so much more waiting for you. But we have to leave you with one final provocative thought, a little bit of homework for your dreams tonight.
Oh, this is the one that always sticks with me.
Tonight, when you drift off to sleep and maybe you find yourself wandering in a strange hallway or walking through a beautiful house you just don't recognize, stop and ask yourself, is the terrifying monster you see just a subconscious fabrication that you need to actively banish?
Or are you walking through a reality that is just as solid and real as your own bedroom?
And if you visit a majestic house in your dream that you have never seen before, was it a house that some architect almost built 300 years ago?
Are you the very first physical visitor to a museum that never was?
Definitely something to mull over in the dark.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring and stay curious.
And always watch out for those subconscious fabrications.